attracted to each other at the party. That was obvious. You're on your own for the night. That's also obvious.
It's Sunday morning on CBS, and here again is Jane Pauley.
Michael Douglas and Glenn Close had provocative leading roles in the 1987 film Fatal Attraction, thanks to the woman who was playing the leading role at the studio that produced it. Sherry Lansing has a Hollywood story all her own, as Mo Rocca now tells us.
How did you fall in love with movies?
It began from the time I was a kid. I adored my father.
And as a young girl growing up in Chicago, Sherry Lansing's father would take her to the movies on weekends.
He'd watch Harold Lloyd, Charlie Chaplin, and I'd watch him laugh, and then I'd watch him cry, and I'd watch him be moved. And so I saw that film could be about something that also changed the way you think.
Miss Sherry Lansing.
Sherry Lansing went on to change Hollywood when she became the first woman to run a major movie studio, a true Hollywood story told in a recent book. But when she headed west at the age of 22, this future pioneer first tried acting.
Mary's really keeping her looks.
She was in a commercial for Ivory Dish Soap.
I have plenty of tortillas and beans and chili.
And then she was cast as a young Mexican woman in 1970's Rio Lobo.
Take a look.
Starring John Wayne.
Go on, take a good look.
You did well as an actress.
But the problem is, I was always uncomfortable as an actress. First of all, I had no talent. I really was a bad actress, so I just want to say that. I really, really was a bad actress.
You were going to say no to yourself.
I would have not cast me.
Her director on Rio Lobo was the great Howard Hawks.
Howard Hawks had this image of what a woman should be. She should be tall, she should be brown hair, blue-eyed, you know.
And Hawks told her she should speak in a deep voice, like actress Lauren Bacall.
So I was supposed to speak like this through the whole movie.
I told you I'd kill him.
She couldn't have a Chicago accent, she couldn't be animated. I hated it.
So Lansing quit acting and put her college English degree to work reading scripts.
I had a desk and I had a script, and as uncomfortable as I felt when I was acting, I felt equally the opposite reading scripts. And strangely enough, I wasn't afraid to express my opinions.
She rose up the ranks quickly, working on movies like The China Syndrome and Kramer vs. Kramer. And in 1980, Sherry Lansing was named president of production for 20th Century Fox. Did you appreciate how big a deal that was at the time?
Not initially, of course, but then when it's on the front page of every newspaper.
The New York Times.
Yeah,
what was the headline?
The New York Times headline was, "Ex-model becomes head of 20th Century Fox." I mean, that shows you what the time was like.
As a studio head, she had power, but she didn't enjoy overseeing everyone else's movies. So within 3 years, she stepped down so that she could produce her own movies. One of those was Fatal Attraction.
And you're here with a strange girl being a naughty boy.
The story of a single woman, played by Glenn Close, whose relationship with a married man,
I'll tell your wife.
played by Michael Douglas, turns menacing.
You tell my wife, I'll kill you.
I identified with the Glenn Close character because I had had a boyfriend who one day got up and said, "I don't love you anymore, I'm leaving." And I thought we were completely happy. And for about 2 days, I couldn't get out of bed. And then I started to dial his number, and he would answer, and I would hang up the phone. And then I drove around his block, and I felt as if he had taken all my self-esteem with me.
Well, he did get up and leave right in the middle of the night, right? I mean, that's pretty rough.
No, it was the morning. He left in the morning.
Lansing's instinct for what made a good story paid off. Fatal Attraction was a blockbuster. Lansing had another smash hit with Indecent Proposal.
Did I ever tell you I love you?
No.
Which starred Woody Harrelson and Demi Moore as a financially struggling couple offered $1 million from an older Robert Redford to spend a night with the bride.
No, the night would come and go, but the money could last a lifetime.
The movie seemed to have everyone talking.
I used to call it the dinner conversation. You go see a movie, you go see Indecent Proposal, and you've been entertained, you've been moved, but then you say, would you do that?
Lansing was named CEO of Paramount Pictures in 1992.
This little theater is where I saw the first cut of every movie.
It was another first for women.
Your name up in lights.
Yep.
Lansing's role model for navigating in a male-dominated environment, her mother Margot, who'd overcome her own share of challenges. When Lansing was just 9, her father, who'd run his own business, died.
In the middle of her grief, these two gentlemen came to see my mother, and they said to her, Margot, you don't need to worry. We'll take over the business, and we'll take care of you and your family. And she said, no, you won't. You will teach me how to run the business.
That must have really sunk in for you.
Beyond, and I will take care of my children. She used to say to me as a kid, pull up your socks. And that meant stop feeling sorry for yourself and get on with it.
A few years later, her mother married businessman Norton Lansing. That relationship offered Lansing another lesson.
Sometimes he'd start to yell and she'd start to laugh. And she'd go, oh, he's really upset, isn't he? And I watched her do that. And I realized very early on that yelling is a style. It's a way of expressing yourself.
That must have served you very well for so many years when you were the only woman in the room.
It did. It didn't frighten me. I didn't hear it. I mean, I literally didn't hear it.
Lansing says she never suffered physical harassment during her years in Hollywood. She says she's been shocked and saddened by the revelations of the past couple of years.
It's very painful to think that women had to endure this. And it makes me feel very sad. And I'm just very, very glad that they feel empowered enough now to speak out.
And if somebody had come to you with the kinds of allegations we hear now,
I would have taken very strong action.
You're a tough lady.
No, I think I'm a fair lady, and that kind of behavior cannot be tolerated. Come on
Well,
over
right
to
there.
over here, honey.
And this is
So-
where they'll pick up the shot, I'm sure.
Right,
So they'll pick it up, and we'll be. I like us talking. So it looks
Lansing
like
is
we're
married
having
to William Friedkin, the Oscar-winning director of classics like The French Connection and The
You
Exorcist.
don't
This
need
is
to
like the
say
stuff-
anything to direct.
You don't? You don't want us talking? But
This
honey,
Walk and Talk,
dear.
produced by Sherry Lansing and directed by William Friedkin.
We met at an Oscar party, and the door opened, and there was Sherry. And I think I fell instantly in love with her.
Friedkin had been married and divorced 3 times before.
Now, forgive me, but did anyone say, don't marry this man?
everyone.
Plenty. Oh, sure.
The couple has been married for 27 years.
You make me feel safe, and you make me feel like I can go out there and do anything, and no matter what happens, no matter what risks I take, no matter how I might succeed or fail, that it doesn't make any difference to you. And that's
Well,
the
I'd rather
greatest thing.
you succeeded.
No, but it's not going to change anything in our lives.
No.
It's the most wonderful.
After a record 13 years running Paramount, Lansing made yet another bold move and left the movie business altogether.
You were really successful here. You left sort of at the top of your game.
Well, I think life is about chapters, you know, and I felt in many ways as if I'd completed that chapter and I wanted to give back.
Since that time, she's immersed herself in the nonprofit world and raised hundreds of millions of dollars for causes including education and cancer research. In 2007, Sherry Lansing was honored with an Oscar for her life in Hollywood and her life since Hollywood.
If you take risks, you're going to be wrong as much as you're right, and that is the pain of life and the joy of life.